Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we have Stefan Schmidt, Marten Jung, and Ryan Rotolo from the Crypto Fiend YouTube channel. We're here to talk about Unibright, BaseLedger, baseline protocol, all that good stuff in the world of enterprise blockchain adoption. So first of all, thanks everyone for joining the call today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor. I'm excited to answer some of the community's questions.
Love it, love it. So the first place that I really wanted to start, we jump right into it, is to talk about the baseline protocol. And the baseline protocol, which Unibright has contributed a lot to, really set forth a pattern for enterprises to achieve a balance between public blockchains like Ethereum and then their private, off-chain systems that they use for everyday business operations. And so the clever naming or nomenclature of the baseline protocol is derived from that idea that enterprises can sort of baseline their off-chain operations and state on a public mainnet like Ethereum as a tamper-resistant record. So Stefan and Marten, I would love to hear more information about how Coke One North America, a Coca-Cola company, is using baseline protocol and what value it's sort of served in the context of their enterprise's use of blockchain.
Yeah, so what we noticed, what happened with the baseline protocol is actually that the development of putting less data into the blockchain actually helps driving the integration. Mm-hmm. So when we look back like 2 or 3 years when we talked about blockchain in the enterprise context, it was perhaps mostly understood as a shared database where all the companies just put their data in a public available place. Didn't work out so well. So the next step was, let's use smart contracts to at least have a common set of business rules or calculation or business logic on chain. Also still hard for enterprise organizations to achieve. And baseline goes even one step further and says, well, keep your data in your private system, in your ERP system, your SAP, your Microsoft Dynamics or whatever. Mm-hmm. But use that mainnet as a common reference channel to sync on your business processes. And this is something, of course, an integration company like Unibright likes very much, mm-hmm. because we focused on connecting the off-chain world to the on-chain world from the very beginning of Unibright. And baseline is just a perfect, let's call it accelerator or concept that really makes things happen now.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps to your question on Coke One North America and what they are doing specifically, I mean, exactly that. We have purchasing going on, so supply chain, and you have a complex business process with multiple entities and multiple ERP systems or off-chain systems in general. And baseline is exactly used for doing that. So keeping all systems in sync, so to say. So we have purchases, we have deliveries, we have invoices, all of that, and all these objects are mirrored in all these systems, and we have every information again over and over in all the systems, and we have to make sure that all systems run in sync. And that's exactly what we use the public blockchain for, to keep them all in sync. That's the main idea of baseline, and it works out just great in the Kona case, and we're happy that Kona stepped forward and wanted to make use of this great approach.
Yeah, I think it's super powerful to see big enterprises, especially one with that large of a footprint, taking the steps to utilize public mainnets to an extent. I mean, Ryan, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that the broader blockchain community is so focused on DeFi and some of the other cutting edge applications, but I think that enterprise use is something that people should focus more on.
Absolutely. I think everyone's a little too much focused on sushi and pancakes right now, and they need to pay attention to where the real money is going to be flowing.
Yeah,
but with time.
Yeah, it'll take time to do. And I wanted to say one of the challenges too that we're approaching is the limitations of the public mainnets that exist now, right? With the latest run on crypto and the latest bull run buzz, I think that Ethereum has again become very clearly a point of contention for a lot of people. You have, a lot of things about the public mainnet that run counter to enterprises' needs, right? There's no predictability in terms of costs. The costs are very expensive to run transactions through, and scalability and throughput is also by no means guaranteed. So I guess this prompted the creation of a recent announcement, which is BaseLedger. And I wanted to give you, Marten, Stefan, an opportunity to share for the average user what this means and what the value proposition is for creating what is very much your own mainnet architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so perhaps to understand our approach, it's very vital to understand that we always take the perspective of an enterprise organization as a client of our software. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much about which blockchain do we like most, or are we in any kind evangelist of one technology or another. Because for enterprises, integration is a long-lasting process. If they set up something today, they want to be sure that it's still up and running in, say, 5 or even 10 years. So BaseLedger is exactly about enabling that, giving a future-proof implementation or architecture that you can connect to as an enterprise if you want to baseline. And of course, we listen to customers or potential customers, and their concerns were not only about the service quality, like costs or throughput, surely that, but also about data privacy and compliance issues, and especially about that future-proofness or sustainability in terms of what do we actually do if a technology changes, or if there's a mainnet that doesn't work anymore, do we have to do everything again from scratch, or can we build upon what we did so far? This was the major incentive for us to work on BaseLedger.
Yeah, and just to make it clear, it's not about competition or replacing Ethereum or something like that. It's about enabling layer 1 solutions like Ethereum to play that vital role in the baseline approach, so to say. So for example, with BaseLedger, you can use it as a layer 2 solution and then settle everything in Ethereum if the customer wants to do. But of course, it's possible as well to use BaseLedger as a layer 2 and layer 1 solution. So you can go without Ethereum as well. But it's not like, oh, let's replace Ethereum. That's not the idea. Mm-hmm. For example, everything around cryptocurrencies and tokens, that's nothing you want to have on BaseLedger, and that's nothing we want to have on it, because the architecture is completely different. It's like having a council-governed network with only, let's say, 30, 40, or 100 nodes at most, and that's something different. It's much faster, much cheaper. You can come up with great ideas about how to reach data compliance, and that's all doable in this architecture. But of course, Ethereum has absolutely its role in enabling cryptocurrencies with a much more decentralized network.
Right. And so do you envision BaseLedger being used sort of in tandem or as a conduit to interact with other mainnets like Ethereum, where DeFi and non-fungible token ecosystems are going to continue to thrive? I know enterprises are starting to be interested in doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's also what we showed in the white paper, that the actual problem, what is the right mainnet, this question alone shows the problem, because it's not possible to just pick one protocol and then build a standard on one implementation. This is not the way it works. It should be the other way around. You should set a standard and then go for commercial offerings like we do with Unibright and Provide that make use of that standard on whatever protocol. Because I want to sell software to enterprise clients that can use this software today, in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years. So for the current time being, for example, in the Kona case, we are still working on the implementation with Ethereum as the mainnet, and this is totally fine to do so. But to scale properly and to talk to many clients all over the world in different jurisdictions with different technical setups, different compliance setups, with BaseLedger, we built something that can adapt to these different approaches and requests.
Yeah, and perhaps just a small remark on DeFi, as we already touched it a bit. I mean, it's not so far away. For Kona, I mean, we have the supply chain, but now the next thing obviously would be invoice tokenization or something like that. And there are customers that are talking about it. But you're right as well. I mean, I guess enterprise DeFi is at least 1 year behind, let's say, baselining or baseline business processes in general, but you can feel it coming up, and we have talks with customers and they're looking into it. Of course, it's about regulations as well here, because you're touching somehow security matters or whatever. But from a technology perspective, they are interested in it, and that's what we had in mind with BaseLedger when we came up with the architecture that allows us to employ different tokenization exits, so to say, different blockchains for running tokens on.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because I think you'll start to see over time, and this is my opinion, the lines between enterprise use cases and the use cases that we see in the public domain start to blur a little bit more, where enterprises might play heavily in the DeFi space that might have once disrupted their existing business model. And so it'll be really interesting to see where something like that goes. But that being said, in the design of BaseLedger was, what were your main focal points? Was it, scalability or maintaining some level of decentralization? Like what was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I mean, the main focal point was developing a solution that is suitable for enterprise customers. So it's about service quality, having high performance and very low and fixed costs. So that's service quality. And everything about data compliance, we already talked about it, but that's the elephant in the room. So before we talk about costs or performance, the compliance officer of any company asked about all these matters. So where is data stored? How can we delete the data? How can we query it? Or all these enablements or rights that the data owner has today. How is that implemented within a public ledger technology? So you first have to have an answer to that question, and then you can come up with, oh, it's so fast and so cheap and it's super integrated already. So yeah, that's the focal point from my point of view.
Yeah, and it was from our perspective, it was just clever to do so, because with the joint offering we have with Provide, offering our tech stack, we already have some kind of a decentralized structure with all clients that want to baseline. They are running a tech stack, so it's an easy thought model to add some consensus layer to this already distributed architecture. So as always, we are techies, so we listen to the customers, but the motivation personally for us too always comes from the technical fascination as well. So this is a good space to bring these things together.
But now the great thing for the customers is they can not only use BaseLedger, use the consensus mechanism, but they can also become part of it. So like running a validator node and then not only paying for the network, but also being part of it and making it stronger and getting a revenue share on it. So I guess this is a great setup. The customers don't have to do it. They just can use it and pay for using it, but they also can become a part of the network. So we are trying to build an incentivized ecosystem or tokenized ecosystem that just works and makes BaseLedger and everything around much bigger.
It's super powerful having this type of option, and you guys mentioned before that the future being not one protocol or one platform to rule them all and to have a standard thing everyone uses. I've never seen that in any avenue of technology, not once. And
perhaps not in the blockchain space, but think of enabler that had the idea when MySpace was built, that he just offers a UI to enter all your MySpace data and would have been able to just switch it with one switch to Facebook after MySpace went down. There were a lot of, bands and musicians and artists that would really loved this feature. And so this thought model is what we apply with Unibright, with that blockchain agnostics. And personally, I am most excited about all the protocols that are not even there. So when we come together like in 2 or 3 years and we look back to 2021 and what did we know back then? This is the funny thing.
Yeah, then we want to have that switch with our customers that we just push or pull or whatever, and then the great baseline proofs get settled in the new blockchain that is much better for whichever reason then, but that's the idea of building it in a way that it's future-proof and pluggable.
So in a sense, you guys are almost creating a blockchain agnostic layer as a service, if you will, for enterprises to be insulated from the rapid clip of change that's going on right now in the space.
That's a perfect summary, and I officially asked to use that claim on our official website.
Sounds good. You're free to, 100% free to.
But these were famous words.
We will credit you.
Sounds good. I love it. And you brought up a really interesting point, and I want to pull on it more because I think it's critical, and that is, at least something that I've come across a lot in my own professional career in the blockchain space and in the crypto space. It's that global data regulations and just generally regulatory posture from a IT standards perspective starts to become a friction point for a lot of projects, and that's where they fail. One of those specific examples is GDPR regulations, right? Data related regulations that are native to Europe right now. And I wanted to just get your thoughts. I know you alluded to it before. How are you approaching that problem? Because I think not many blockchain networks are even considering that.
Yeah, I think we try to tackle it the same way that we try to tackle the pure technology topics. So GDPR is also a framework, and a framework that has been built or set in place even way before blockchain was invented or built. So just as technical frameworks evolve with different ERP systems, with different connection layers, with different protocols on blockchain side, also the legal frameworks will evolve. And you have to have something if you want to scale fast and if you want to be adapted, if you want to adapt to these new things, you have to build something that has these different concepts in mind and can somehow automate on adjusting to them. And that's perhaps a very big picture, but personally, I think we don't see data compliance frameworks so much differently than we see technical frameworks. We just try to build something that can plug in and adapt to these different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about GDPR was, as you said, thought on before blockchain became famous. So of course you have to get your head around how do I, somehow can delete data from a public blockchain, which sounds like a contradiction at first, but you can do it, and we laid our approach out in the white paper. It's just about technical solutions to these demands, and then you can build them into a public ledger as well. It's just that due to the lack of enterprise usage so far, I guess the whole topic wasn't driven so far in the blockchain space in general. But it's coming heavily with companies looking at the technology.
Yeah, so perhaps to sum it up, we try to make it as hard as possible for the compliance officer of a company to say no to a blockchain-based approach. So, and nowadays they still have it very easy to say no because there are many red flags that appear very quickly. And BaseLedger is perhaps something to embrace the compliance officers and to make them supporters of a blockchain-based technology.
Yeah, and from a technical and development insight perspective, we can tell you everything around compliance. That's the thing where you have to do the most work. Mm-hmm. So when we use or fork something like Tendermint, features like performance and ultra low and fixed costs, we just more or less get them by design. If we come up with the right network architecture topology, having just the right number of nodes, professional nodes, huge computing power, then we have these set up, but everything about compliance, we have to develop ourselves and add to the fork or whatever we do with the consensus mechanism. So there's mainly our work, and everything else in terms of integration, for example, a lot of that has been tackled already with our Provide and Unibright offering. So we are very far on that already. We're not starting from scratch here. It's just the best of breed thing, and it feels somehow natural with the things we've already been doing.
Yeah, no, and I look reading through the white paper, even on the first read, I'll read through it probably 2 or 3 more times to absorb everything. I think there's a lot of, there are sections of that white paper like compliance, like performance and that sort of thing. You could write multiple white papers of their own based off of, and it'll continue to evolve. But Ryan, I wanted to ask you this because, being in, another person who has a YouTube channel where you interact with a lot of people in the crypto community, I notice a lot of people talking about privacy and how important it is to them. But then I think a large component that is ignored is that, GDPR in many ways is a win for privacy. Yet I think people think of it only in a negative light because of the friction between GDPR and blockchain. So have you seen people talking about that in the comment section?
Honestly, I would say no. Even like with my friends, it's kind of a touchy subject. I actually deleted my Facebook probably like 2 months ago because I learned, especially with like the Messenger app, you might as well just hand them your phone unlocked. They have access to everything on your phone. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've tried to explain that so much to my friends, my family, but at the end of the day, I think it's just that people like convenience. They like to say that they have nothing to hide, so it doesn't matter anyways. Yeah. But in the grand scheme, when you bundle all this data up with every individual in the world, that could be a weapon one day. Mm-hmm. So I think it's definitely great that organizations and countries are tackling data privacy, and I would like to see that way more in the United States specifically. And I know, I believe Apple has been getting a lot of pats on the back for really stepping up and not allowing certain companies to pretty much just mine all your information all the time. So no, I have not been seeing it very often.
Yeah, and I asked that question specifically to, I think, draw the clear chasm between, you know, where people see blockchain and cryptocurrency going, and then where some of these data regulations, privacy things that people also want. You know, I think there's going to have to be a lot of work done from an engineering perspective, from a user experience perspective, to align those two incentives and those two goals of having privacy, but also having things written to an immutable ledger. You know, there's some trapdoors along that path, and I don't know how you feel about it, Marten and Stefan.
Yeah, everything makes total sense. And perhaps to give another perspective, an enterprise has to tackle this privacy topic from two sides, because they're an enterprise organization that have to fulfill, say, or to be GDPR compliant. But again, they are perhaps making business with end consumers that also have an interest in their own data privacy. So this complete topic is not only about regulation or making things more complicated, let's call it that way. It also holds a lot of potential if you think about monetizing your data as an individual, and you would really have the option to decide what happens with my data. If the data is sold for commercial reasons, how can I be a part of the monetizing behind it? I mean, this is nothing that is on the first page of what we want to achieve with BaseLedger, for example, but it adds to the picture that these data privacy and compliance subjects get more and more important, and not only for big players, but for every individual who is in touch with data, which is nowadays basically everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different approach if you're talking about these huge silos that reside with big companies and there's gigantic data within them. Of course, then everyone can get their heads around and think, oh, no one knows what data is stored there and what is done with the data. But looking at especially public blockchains, it's a completely different approach. So it's public, you can see the data, but still you have the demands in terms of data privacy. And people too have rights with public blockchains in getting to know where the data is stored, by whom it is stored, how they can delete it if they want, or whatever. But I think at first glance, one doesn't make the connection so easily to getting the feeling for, oh, GDPR is something worth considering or needs to be considered for blockchains as well.
Yeah. It's not something that I think is as ubiquitous in people's minds as the idea of, you know, the decentralized future or DeFi. I think the specifics about regulations, even ones that benefit people or that are popular, I think are lost. And so that's a great point. But I think, you know, being mindful of time, the last question that I wanted to ask you is, you know, how do you go about driving adoption for something like BaseLedger, and what is the approach, or maybe, you know, some target industries that you see that are really ready for this type of technology?
Yeah, I think basically, perhaps to add what we said at the very beginning of the interview with the baseline approach and with BaseLedger, it became just more realistic to really do enterprise business with blockchain involved. So our major idea is always to build the real thing, to work with real customers and real solutions, and the learnings that we gain from that, of course, we are very happy to share them with the community or to give them back to a standard like Baseline. I think the take is really work on real projects, and that's what we're currently doing.
Yeah, I mean, what's our great advantage, I think, is that we are already working on blockchain projects in general, like, for example, with Kona or others that we don't mention yet. But of course, you always have the discussion on what is the right mainnet if or when we go productive. So we have these talks now. And of course, now we have a great option. We always can lay on the table and say, oh, look at this. This should work for you in some manner, perhaps. Let's look at this. So I guess we're in a great position, especially as we teamed up with Provide, and we have so much requests coming from their side as well. And in general, I have the feeling that it's not only the DeFi thing that is kicking up. The whole demand or the understanding for blockchain technology has significantly increased over the last month, and that's very encouraging for us, and I guess for the baseline community as well.
Yeah, compared to 2017, right now, having been through that cycle, Ryan, you might feel the same way, but it feels like a healthier space, a healthier interest. It's not a let's check the box so that our stock price goes up or so that we can say we did it. It's a genuine coming of age in the space, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, same here.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So I want to first thank everyone who's watching, and I want to encourage you to also stay tuned because Ryan also is going to be doing an interview on his channel. It's going to talk about community questions related to BaseLedger, Unibright, and the ecosystem and the business side of things. So make sure you check that out and subscribe to his channel. But I want to thank you, Stefan and Marten, for joining on the channel talking about BaseLedger, and I encourage everyone to watch this video all the way through, and also, of course, read the white paper.
Thanks. Thank you. Great discussion.
Absolutely. Cheers.